property is open space, so it's only residential. So we have 96.2% of residential property and just under 3% for the commercial, industrial, personal. So it really doesn't make sense to do a tax, a split, or have two different tax rates at this time. The residential exemption is one where the properties are mostly non-owner occupied, so that the exemption would go to those who actually live here year round. We no longer are like that. We were back in the 60s and 70s, et cetera, but that has all changed. Most are now full-time residents of the town of Nahant. The next one, the small commercial exemption, that is for those businesses that are registered with the Department of Employment. And we get a list, but more than half of them are not within our billing for personal property for one reason or another. Maybe just because they live here, but they don't, their business is not here at all. The next one is the senior means tested exemption. This came up last year. This one is something that only seniors who actually file with the state income tax, the Schedule CB, which is the circuit breaker, that is a age limit, it is an asset limit, it is an income limit, and the family residence cannot exceed $800,000. So that is not one that I think that we want to go through. I mean, if there's enough seniors that come in and say they can't, or they're not able to apply for the exemptions that we currently have, then I think maybe we can look at that. But right at the moment, I don't think that we need to, but it'd be something that have to be voted at town meeting. And then the open space, as I mentioned before, there is no classified land in the town of Nahant, except that one is got a taxable, it's the Nahant Country Club. They have a 5 acres of recreation land. So they do get already a discount under Chapter 61B. So they're not getting an open space discount.
So there would be no benefit to changing this.
There'd be no benefit.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair, Dan Scripp here.
Yes, Dan.
The Board of Assessors should open a meeting. This was notice of a joint meeting, and a quorum is present with Sheila offering some advice, or at least some input. So to be safe, and we're safe in terms of the open meeting law, the Board of Assessors should open their meeting and then close it accordingly.
I'm not sure. I thought, isn't she acting in an advisory capacity?
But my understanding is that a quorum of the Board of Assessors is present tonight.
So they should open. So David, you should open as the chair for the Board of Assessors.
Yes, and then close whenever you're ready.
Right.
Great, thanks, guys.
All right, so I move that we open a meeting of the Board of Assessors, and I will say David Hunt present.
I'll second it. Catherine Schreiber, aye.
Cameron Merrill present, aye.
So
Is that good now, Dan?
Board of Assessors meeting is hereby open.
Yes, great, thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dan. Discussion.
Yes, so Sheila, just a couple points of clarification. Obviously, there is open space in town but most of the open space in town is owned by the town, right?
Well, for classification purposes, we do not have open space.
Oh, I see.
You, the Board of Selectmen, in a different capacity, appoint the Open Space Plan Committee, and that is for a separate purpose. This is for taxation purposes, and it meets and follows the Department of Revenue's guidelines.
And then just for background, what's proposed in this motion is no change from last year, and the several years prior, correct?
Right, correct. No change.
And then one more thing, can you explain the excess levy capacity limit?
Yes, our levy limit, okay, is $11,560,405. We are not going to tax to that full amount, but it will be less by the $10,215.12 that is excess levy capacity.
Let me just add, Josh, that the levy limit is set by Proposition 2.5. So we can't raise it taxes by more than 2.5%, either by valuation or by taxation.
So will we be that 10,000 and change under that levy limit?
Correct.
Yeah, I wish the excess was 10 million, but I was mistaken.
Our taxes will be very low.
Right. Well, the tax rate's actually not so bad. Last year's was $9.79. So right now it's calculating at $9.09.
One of the lowest in Essex County.
Right. Yep, probably. Still heading that way.
A job well done.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Any further discussion?
Can I please ask a question? So that doesn't mean I was a little bit late. Sorry about that. Does that means the residential property and commercial property have the same rate?
Correct.
Sorry, did you say
Yes.
something?
Yes,
Oh.
that's correct. $9.09 for all classes of property.
Okay, so we have made a decision this year. We keep the same way as previous years.
Yes, that's what the selectmen are proposing.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I think because this is a hearing, we should open it up to the public. Any other comments?
Do we have anything out there?
People can use the chat too if for some reason you can't use your audio on your computer.
May I ask, is there a reason why we are not differentiate these two categories, that we are taxing them the same rate?
The different categories, the categories are residential. So all the single families, two families, threes, condo units, etc. Those will all be taxed at $9.09. And then our next class is commercial, and then industrial and personal property. And those would be taxed also at the same rate, $9.09.
So is there, I think the question was, is there, what is the rationale for taxing
Right.
residential and commercial the same?
Because of the percentage of classified properties, almost there's over 96% is residential, and there's only 3.8% that is commercial, industrial, personal. So to try to burden the commercial, industrial, personal with a different rate to try to get lower rates for the residential, it wouldn't work very well.
Does that answer your question, Z? And by the way, when people ask a question or want to make a comment, could they please identify themselves and their address, please?
Yes, my address is 60 Irving Way.
Did that answer your question?
Yes, it does answer my question. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There's a question in the chat from Miss Chen from Lynn Item.
Yes, it's a direct message, so I think other cannot see it. So I would just exit here. So I'm thinking, what if there are more commercial property in the future? Should we have a classification now, just in preparation?
Well, each year we have to hold the tax classification hearing. So, as commercial may change, yes, obviously, that's something that the selectmen would have an opportunity to review.
Sheila, you mentioned that in Lynn, there's different rates for residential and commercial.
Right.
Do you know approximately how those compare?
I don't today.
I mean, is the commercial higher?
In the past, maybe $16 for the residential, but the valuation of an average single family home, maybe 300,000. And then the commercial industrial personal property would be $49. I mean, there were just large swings.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm getting at is, might commercial be taxed at a higher rate typically in another community that had more commercial? Is that?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, more commercial, but also personal property accounts too.
Yeah.
And industrial sections,
Hey, Sheila,
manufacturing, all of that.
Sheila, if you were to reclassify, have you calculated what the additional dollars might be, if any?
There'd be no additional dollars. It would just be a shift of tax burden.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, we might save $10 on a residential property, but the commercial industrial personal would have maybe $1,000. Maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, but it would be a big, huge swing. Because remember, we're only raising $11,560 or so.
Thank you.
And 96% of that value is attributed to that
Yeah.
11 million.
Got it.
Looking online at other communities in Essex County and their tax rates, we're not alone in having a single tax rate.
Correct.
Essex, Marblehead, Manchester by the Sea, Newbury, Rockport, Salisbury, many other communities, West Newbury, that's not all of them, but many other communities also have a single tax rate.
Right. Yeah. And I did print out a sheet of the communities that have their tax rate approved to date, and there's 20 of them. And Cambridge has a split tax rate. Adams has a split tax rate. Lincoln has a split tax rate. Truro and Provincetown have a split tax rate. Though Yarmouth, their tax rate across the board is $8.11. So they are a little lower than us. Eastham is $7.24.
But for Essex County,
Right.
those are outside, but for our.
Those are outside, right? There's no one here that is from Essex County, and the lowest one so far is Chatham, $3.88.
Yeah, because the average house in Chatham is probably $15 million.
Right. Right. Well, that's what yeah, exactly. And so just looking, $3.88.
Right.
Our average single family home has gone up. It's 930,100 right now as our average single family home.
In the past, our average tax bill has tracked near the middle compared to other Essex County municipalities, even though our tax rate is lower.
Yeah, because of the valuation, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather be paying more in taxes because my valuation is increasing rather than government spending. So, that's a good sign.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Anything else out there?
We can vote on this?
Roll call vote.
Josh Hanford, aye.
Mark Cullen and
Gene Canty, aye.
I move that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Assessors close the FY 2023 tax classification hearing.
Second.
Just want to say, in discussion, I'm sorry. Yeah, in discussion, thank you, Sheila, and thank you to the Board of Assessors for going through this. I know it takes some work. I appreciate your efforts here, and looks good. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next
Yeah.
year.
Thank you, Sheila.
Yep, thank you.
Did we have a motion to close it out?
Well, I'm sorry, yeah.
The assessor
made-
should close out.
Okay, so motion for the Board of Assessors to close their meeting. And David Hunt, aye.
Seconded, Catherine Sherber, aye.
Cameron Merrill, aye.
Okay,
right.
the board needs to vote on closing the hearing also. I made the-
Josh Hanford, aye.
Mark Cullen and
Gene Canty, aye.
I. Okay. We have new
Hey.
business.
Yep, we do have one more item, Board of Selectmen.
Okay. Let me get this motion. Hold on one second. Okay, this is on the Housing Plan Advisory Committee that we've been talking about during our last few meetings, and we'll have a discussion after I make the motion. I move to establish a Housing Plan Advisory Committee consisting of 9 members, each serving 3 years, overlapping terms, to consist of 1 member of the Board of Selectmen, 1 member of the Planning Board, 1 member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 member of the Housing Authority, 1 member of the School Committee, 1 member of the Community Preservation Committee, to be appointed by those respective committees, and 3 residents appointed by the town administrator to oversee and guide the public process for developing a housing plan consistent with the zoning bylaws mandated by Section 3A of Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, affecting all MBTA communities, including Nahant, which said plan shall be submitted to the Board of Selectmen for consideration and recommendations to a future meeting for its adoption.
Seconded.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion?
I didn't hear an advisory and finance committee membership. Is that intentional?
Yes, in discussion with town council, he reminded me that our charter stipulates that members of the advisory and finance committee cannot serve on any other committees.
Yes.
This is an advisory committee that we're creating. It will be an extremely public process. I think that the finance committee, even though they aren't allowed to have a membership on this committee, I think they'll be heavily involved and attend the public meetings, and I'll speak to them about that.
Mr. Chair, one clarification to the motion, and that's at the very end, it'll be submitted to a future town meeting. I think the word town was left out, which of course is crucial to the motion.
So moved.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you.
And Dan, just take a closer look at this motion.
Yes.
This committee is going to oversee the process of the development of the zoning bylaws mandated by Section 3A of MGL Chapter 40A.
Right.
It's also going to oversee the public process related to developing the housing plan.
Okay.
Which I believe, ultimately, I don't know if the housing plan would require a town meeting vote of adoption, or if it would just simply require a Board of Selectmen vote of adoption. But do you think that needs any clarification? in the
Yeah, I
motion?
think it does, because when we drafted this, I was envisioning only section 30, I'm sorry, section 3 of chapter 40 yet. And that's
This committee is going to help with both processes.
okay. We should clarify that. And the housing plan is coming under what direction? What are you thinking of? Do you mean the affordable housing plan?
Right.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
It's not required. We're not required to have a housing plan, but the town has sought out funding, has signed a contract with MAPC,
Yes.
and we are seeking to develop one.
Okay. So then the mandate then would be more than just the section 3A, would be also the affordable housing plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the draft I had sent you before, at the end, it talked about both.
Okay. All right. Let's
So maybe we withdraw this motion and
yes.
you write it, and we'll just keep discussing until.
Yeah, let's withdraw the motion, and then we'll clarify that there's actually 2 mandates to this subcommittee. And yes, let's do that while discussion generally ensues.
All right.
I
So
It is withdrawn.
seconded.
Okay, so then you guys discuss, just have a general discussion, and we'll come back to the motion.
Yep.
So
So,
as we talked about in previous meetings, I've met with MAPC, joined with Selectmen Cullinan. We've signed a contract to have them help us develop a housing plan funded through CPC funds that were approved at a previous town meeting. We've also received a grant from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, a planning grant to hire MAPC to help us develop zoning bylaws related to the Chapter 3A MBTA communities requirement. It's really, the advisory committee is just that. It's simply to help oversee the public process and provide a recommendation that ultimately will be, for the zoning bylaws, it will have to go through the planning board and then a town meeting vote. And for the housing plan, it'll have to be, I think, adopted by the Board of Selectmen. I don't believe it has to go to a town meeting vote. That being said, it could. And how big or how small the advisory committee is ultimately up to any individual municipality. In discussions with MAPC and Selectman Cullinan, we felt it was important to have a wide range of representation on this committee because housing, the topic of housing, spreads so far across the community, and all these, different respective committees should be a part of this process. So that's why we selected zoning board, planning board, board of selectmen, housing authority, school committee, community preservation committee, and 3 residents as well.
Who's going to make those appointments?
So each committee will make their own respective appointment for the representation, and then I have the authority to appoint the 3 residents.
Okay. Anything further?
I just again want to point out that all the meetings of this committee would be open meetings, and so participation or attendance would be allowed by anybody over the course of the time that this committee is in function, let's say.
Okay, Tony, I just sent you a draft of the motion, and I sent Mark one as well. I can just read it if you like, and you can so move, or you can review it really quick first and make sure we're okay. We're not under any sort of time crunch.
I guess we got to just vote on the whatever you call it.
Subcommittee?
No.
So do they have to vote? Do they have to
Fraction of-
vote to appeal the previous motion, Dan?
Yeah, that would be best if they just vote to, I thought they already did, but yeah, just, that's
Yeah,
fine.
we didn't vote on
Withdraw
it.
the motion.
We just seconded. All right, so Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye.
Gene Canty, aye.
Okay, so Mark and Tony, if you look in your email, you'll see the draft motion. If you want to take
Yeah.
a quick look at it, let me know if you have any questions. And of course, then we'll share the result with everyone.
That's fine to me. Not much change. You can read it, Dan, if you, please.
Yeah.
Okay,
If Tony, if you're okay with it.
Reading it right now.
Can you read it out loud?
I would just get rid of, I would just call it a housing plan, Dan. Of course, there's a strong affordability aspect to it, but it's not only affordable.
that's fine. I'll make it clear when I read the motion which one he's talking about, so it's not a surprise to anyone.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, boy, what just happened? Oh, geez, what did I just do? Oh, come on.
And is there a reason you added the word subcommittee?
Yeah, because it's a subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen. And as Josh just mentioned, it is a public body, which of course needs to comply with the public open meeting law. So it's a subcommittee of the Board of Selectmen.
All right, so I can read it if it's not on your screen anymore.
That's fine. Yeah, go ahead. It's just make sure you
All right.
explain the affordable part so everyone understands what you were mentioning.
I move to establish a housing plan advisory subcommittee consisting of 9 members, each serving 3-year overlapping terms, to consist of 1 member of the Board of Selectmen, 1 member of the Planning Board, 1 member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, 1 member of the Housing Authority, 1 member of the School Committee, 1 member of the Community Preservation Committee, to be appointed by those respective committees, and 3 residents appointed by the town administrator to oversee and guide the public process of developing 1, a housing plan, and 2, a multifamily housing plan consistent with the zoning bylaws mandated by Section 3A of MGL Chapter 40A, affecting all MBTA communities, including Nahant, which said plan shall be submitted to the Board of Selectmen for consideration and recommendation to a future town meeting for its adoption if necessary.
Seconded,
So moved.
seconded,
It-
roll call vote.
Well, wait one
Discussion?
second. Tony, just so the public understands, can you explain where we took out the affordable part, just so everyone's perfectly clear?
Right, so a housing plan encompasses, it's a large umbrella of issues related to housing. It certainly is gonna have a strong emphasis on affordability. But it's beyond that, so I just didn't wanna call it an affordable housing plan. I wanted to be more broad, but certainly that's going to be a large presence of it. The roles and responsibilities of the advisory committee will be to oversee and guide the overall process, provide local insights, act as ambassadors to the project and the overall community, discuss strategies, community engagement, feedback, potential direction, parts of the plan, and help work towards local adoption of the plan and local adoption of the zoning bylaw. So they will meet between now and the end of July 2023 is the schedule that we've worked out with MAPC. There'll be anywhere between 5 and 9 of these public meetings. And it's going to be the emphasis of these meetings is public engagement, like Selectman Ansherman mentioned. We really want to make sure that we get a lot of people involved and a lot of feedback from across the community.
Did you say July 23rd?
July 2023, next year.
Yeah, why wouldn't we try to complete that before the annual town meeting?
That's the schedule that MAPC is, is mapped out as part of their scope. It certainly can move faster than that. But these plans tend to take, some time to put together. They're pretty robust.
Okay,
Yeah, Gene, and the multi-housing plan is, our action plan, I think, is not due until the end of next year, I think. Is that right, Tony? So there's a lot of leeway here. So to try to get it ready before a town meeting would be a bit of a rush at this moment.
okay.
And again, I don't know if the housing plan, I'm sorry, requires a town meeting vote. Certainly the zoning related to 3A and MBTA communities would require a vote, but that's not, as Dan mentioned, isn't as pressing. So we'll move certainly as fast as we can. That's why we added it to today's agenda, so we can get those appointments made and get started on this committee process.
Oh, I'm not pushing to move it as fast as you can. I'm just suggesting that if we could do July, certainly we could do April, May. But I agree it's going to take some time to bring this all together.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue. I think especially in Nahant where we have so little developable land. If we were, in a more rural environment, it probably would be a little easier, but there's very little developable land. And so it's pretty complicated. It's going to be a real challenge. It's going to have a big challenge ahead of them, but I'm really glad that we're taking some action on this.
Yeah, it's, and it's not all just picking places to develop affordable housing. A lot of the complexity of it is looking at the town's zoning and, making recommendations for policy changes that might incentivize affordable housing. So, in our zone, our current zoning, I think it's going to take some time to work through that and see how we fit it in. So it's certainly going to be a long process, and as I said, it's definitely going to need a lot of public involvement.
Tony, are we going to, I'm sure this will be part of discussions in the future, but are we going to get any relief or projected relief from the MBTA?
We did get a lot from their original version of their requirements or guidelines, is what they were titled. The original version, we had submitted comments on that about the impact it would have on the community of our size, and they made a number of changes that made it a lot more doable for us.
Any further discussion?
None from me.
Mark?
No, I'm all set.
Do we have any other?
We got to vote on it. We have to vote on it, Gene.
Okay.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen and I.
Gene Canty, aye. Motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Seconded.
We have a meeting next week, so we'll see you in a week.
Yeah. Gene Canty, aye.
Josh Antrim, aye.
Mark Cullen, aye. Thanks, everybody.